Today. My name is Janet. I'm with Indivisible, Athens, Alabama. I have a website. Also, if you ever want to be on my email list, I do send out regular emails. Just see me, or you can message me through Facebook. But anyway, welcome to Athens if you're not from here or you don't live here. And I just wanted to say we have a few speakers. The first person that's going to speak is Susan. She's with the 5th District in Huntsville. So she's going to say a couple words, and then I'll pass it on to the next person.
Hey, Susan. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for turning out today. So far, again. I've met people from Athens and Decatur and Rogersville and Huntsville and Sylacauga. Is there anybody else in the house? Where are you from? From Tennessee. So yeah, thank you for coming down and making the effort. If we have a sound person, we may need to move it over a little bit. This way?
Yeah, I think so. It might be too
Stay
behind the speakers.
There we go. Yeah, I knew it was either front or behind. But anyway, I just have one message for everyone this morning as we move through this really troubling time in our country, and that is we have to stick together and fight together. Right now we have one mission, and our mission is to defeat fascism and authoritarian in the United States of America. When we have accomplished that, then we can go back to fighting about other things like whether or not you can be a football fan and an activist. I've actually had this conversation with somebody, because anyone who knows me knows that I'm a gigantic Alabama fan, and Roll Tide, season ticket holder, and once I was in a planning session for a rally. This was in the first Trump term, and I pointed out when they were talking about dates, I said, oh, that is the Alabama-Texas A&M game. That won't work. And they were like, what? You would rather go to a football game than a protest? And I said, well, which game? Because of course that's going to be the answer for many football fans. But anyway, we can go back to arguing about our differences and which issues might ought to take precedent over other issues when we have beaten back this current thrust of authoritarianism. Because if you think about it, if we don't stop this, we're not going to have the freedom to argue any issues. We're going to be told what to think and feel and say and do and buy, and who we can hang out with and where we can go to church and who we can love and be married to. So, job one, we're all going to work together, and we're going to get along one way or another until we beat this back. So look for other organizations. So happy to see you out for an Indivisible event today. But if you get a chance to go out and do something with Rainbow Trouble or Liberal Agenda or Purple People or 50501 or DSA or any of the other groups, turn out and support them too. We need to, there's strength and power in numbers. I'm going to leave you just with this one quote, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. It's from Margaret Mead, but it's like my favorite political quote. Never doubt the power of a small group of dedicated people to change the world. It's the only thing that ever has.
You forgot the League of Women Voters.
Legal women, all the groups, all of them. If they're not fascist,
There's plenty of organizations out there. If you don't like standing on the street corner protesting or standing on the bridge doing bridge work, there's lots of things that you can do that will help this movement that doesn't require being in the public face too much. League of Women Voters does do voter registration and other things. Also, there's 5 calls. You can download that app, make calls to your representatives every day. I try to do that. They talk to you sometimes, and I think they count what you're calling about. So every little thing counts. Our next speaker is Ken Hine. He's going to speak about democracy. He and his wife Lydia started Indivisible many years ago when it first started, 2017 or 2018.
Before my time.
So anyway, they were the first ones to do Indivisible in Athens, Alabama.
Does this work? Okay. Why are we here? Why are we standing on a courthouse lawn in the Alabama sun, asking people, begging people to join us, instead of spending time with our loved ones or attending to our own needs? Why have we spent months crying in sorrow and crying out in anger, speaking out in desperation, and spending our time and resources on hope that seems destined to fail? All of us whose hands hold banners of protest and whose feet walk those banners into public squares know that there is more than one answer to that question. Some of us are here because we are Christian, and we know that each person in each church and each generation must make the same decision, whether to crucify Christ in the name of Caesar or sanctify Christ in the name of the poor and the powerless as he directed. We see too many people in too many churches whose lust for power and greed for riches has led them to the wrong decision, and who are using the name of the Lord in vain to satisfy their hubris and join with the cruelty our government is perpetrating. Some of us are here because we are old and we have seen this play before. We are old enough to have known people raised by slaves, old enough to have watched Jim Crow try to make millions of people powerless, invisible, and miserable. We are old enough to have seen those people indigenous to this land herded onto reservations rather than roaming free. We are old enough to have watched Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, Michael Schwerner, Denise McNair, Addie Mae Collins, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley. Hear those names. We saw them murdered. We saw all of those people murdered. In the name of bigotry, we are old enough to have watched the dogs and clubs and tear gas used against people who were doing exactly what we are doing today, and we will fight to see that does not happen again. Some of us are here because we are women, and we see women in the crosshairs of a witless and cruel morality. Some of us are here because we are young, and we see totalitarian recklessness destroying our future. All of us are here because we see our government dismantling justice and freedom, law by law, institution by institution, and dollar by dollar. We are here because the conscience that everyone is supposed to have compels us to be here. We are here because somewhere in this world there needs to be a place where the powerful share their strength with the weak, and the rich share their wealth with the poor, and every person is equal under the law. We are here because we know that through all of human history, someone from each generation has been doing what we are doing today for the same reasons that we are doing it today, at the same risk we are taking today. They, not the rich and the powerful and the famous, are the ones who have lifted us from the pits to the mountaintop. We are here because it is our turn. We are here because if we could be stopped, we would have been stopped centuries ago. We are here. Do you hear that? I said we. And there will always, always, always be another we.
Thank you, Ken. That was excellent. Some of us are not Christians and we're here. So welcome everybody, because we will be targets sooner or later if we are not Christian nationalists. Keep that in mind. The next speaker is Robin. She's going to talk a few minutes about education.
I'm going to be using my phone for reference because I get a little emotional and sometimes you forget, and so I appreciate your honesty in speaking about loss. It's important. My name's Robin Dama. I'm a 30-year resident of your neighboring county, Madison County, and wife of an engineer, mom of 4 young adult children, grandma of the cutest 3-year-old in the universe, and I'm a proud retired public school teacher. They deserve our applause. They truly do. I started my career as a newlywed teaching Head Start at-risk preschoolers. I ended it just in the last few years teaching workforce development skills to adults. In between all of that, I taught for 26 years in middle school and high school and lived to tell about it. I'm proud of those years, and I did learn so much from my students, probably more than I could have ever taught them. Currently, I have embarked on a new career. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm proud to be the owner of the only independent bookstore in the city of Madison. And I am proud on my bookstore shelves to have banned books, to have books written by diverse authors, and books celebrating all people. And no matter who comes in and waves their hand and tells me, as a customer did not too long ago, that all of this is going away, you know. And I just sat and looked at her and asked how I could help her, knowing there really wasn't any way I could. But I'm so proud to have those books on my shelf, and I will continue to do so as long as I can. Over the years, like many of you who grew up in rural or conservative environments, I've learned to be vague. Right? We know that vague speech, right? To pepper my speech with equivocations that have attempted to show others that I'm somewhat intelligent and kind, but I also wasn't willing to, quote, compromise my morals and values. Except when it came down to it, I couldn't have told you exactly what those were. I was regurgitating 3-point sermons and platitudes I'd heard from those around me who said things like, quote, love the sinner, not the sin. Or, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I thought I was doing the right thing by spouting the Christianese that had become so natural to me. While in my heart of hearts, I knew that people were hurting because of some of the positions that I somewhat outwardly supported. It was hard. I had moments of questioning myself and being confused. And I don't know about you, but there were other contradictions in my life. I always called myself a moderate conservative. I was raised by a farming family in Northeast Mississippi where I was taught to give more than I took and also to love all my neighbors. My parents are fantastic people. But they also took me to an evangelical church where I met Jesus about 45 years ago during vacation Bible school. And they also instilled in me a you can take care of yourself mentality from a young age. Now, all of that may seem pretty pedestrian, but it's confusing as heck when you put all of that together and then you move around and you come to a place like Huntsville in the Tennessee Valley and you meet people who don't necessarily believe that. Some other contradictions. I was a 4-H girl. Any 4-Hers? And yeah. I judged dairy cows. I got up early in the morning and fed my little calves before school from these big old bottles, and yet I was also a cheerleader. My parents were very strict with me when it came to dating, socializing, but when they needed me to go to town in my little Ford Maverick, they let me do that at 14, using the back roads, of course, which they were all back roads, but anyway. I was extremely shy with my friends and classmates, but I won public speaking contests all during adolescence. I vehemently argued a pro-life position in the cafeteria, banging my hand on the table. But a few years later, I lost a beauty pageant in college. I know that was many pounds ago. When I responded to an interview question with an anti-capital punishment viewpoint. It seems my life has been filled with contradictory elements like these, and maybe some of you can relate to that. I think about one of the authors I've learned to admire in recent years, the Black female scholar Bell Hooks. If you've never read her, I highly recommend it. I do have her books in my store. Home was the place, she said. Home was the place where I was forced to conform to someone else's image of who and what I should be. School was the place where I could forget that self and through ideas invent myself. And as I became a teacher, whether they were 3-year-olds or whether I was working with a man in his 50s trying to get a better career, I have loved learning from the lived experiences of others, even when it was painful and even when the spotlight shone back at me and showed some things I didn't necessarily want to see. But if teachers can't be learners, I'm not sure what we're doing here. So I've always tried to model learning. I remember some of those lived experiences like they were yesterday. I remember about 20 years ago when this precious middle schooler who was terrified to speak to anyone else came out to me in my classroom after school, and I hugged them. I went to his wedding last month. A trans man who has left this area, whose family roots go deep in Limestone County, so he could live in peace. And his wedding was just so beautiful. I started reading. I started reading more than just the authors that I was told that a good Christian white mom should read. I'm so thankful for people who have written so much truth. I also spent hours interviewing my friend, Mr. Stan Minkenow. If you've been in this area a long time, you may remember in Huntsville a store called Alexander's Fine Jewelry on the Parkway. Stan owned that business for 30-something years after a 32 career in the U.S. Army. He was a Polish Mieszlinga. He was half Jew, half Christian, and he and his family survived the Holocaust, and he joined the U.S. Army in 1952 with the clothes on his back and the notebooks from the German high school that he graduated from. He didn't even have a day of formal schooling until he was 16. And he went to Germany, to a country where he didn't speak the language, went to high school, graduated, and joined the U.S. Army. Was a part of the very first group of Green Berets, Special Forces, highly decorated veteran. And he was extremely patriotic. But every time I would talk to him, or he would come and talk to my students, he would say, I love this country. I could only have done what I've done because of this country. But we cannot sit back and let it become a fascist country. And I love that Stan said that because he had the right to. Not that we all don't, but he especially did. I worked with him for hours interviewing him because I wanted to get his story down before he passed away, and I'm so grateful for my time with Stan. He was my teacher. When you learn from people whose experiences are vastly different from your own, you become a better human. I became a better teacher because of it. I stood in front of classrooms and I knew that my goal was not to mold my students into a carbon copy of anyone, but to become their very best unique selves. And I was grateful during those years. You know, I was in Madison City for most of my career. Great support, great PTA. You know, it's a wonderful community. So is Athens. So are so many of the places you're from. But you know what? A lot of what my students benefited from were provided for because of the U.S. Department of Education, not because of Madison County, Madison City, or the state of Alabama. And that's just the truth. I remember, and some of you may be from this era, you don't have to raise your hand, but in the 1970s, when I was in elementary school, we got our very first, I remember her name was Sonia, she was a special needs student, and until midway through my elementary school experience, she had not been in class, right? Until Public Law 94-142 that allowed for equal, safe, free, and appropriate public education for all, those students were not in our classrooms. And I remember Sonia's face like it was yesterday. Such a sweet, sweet girl. I don't know where Sonia is today, but I know that my life is better because I sat in class with her. When I worked for at-risk preschoolers and children and people at risk and people with needs of all types, and that includes, by the way, people on the gifted end of the special needs spectrum. Students who need just a bit extra to help them reach their potential. The reason that the services for them are in place is because of that federal law. Not because, I mean, it's sad to say, not because the people around them, the people that some believe should be in charge of education, believe in their potential. Now, they would personally say that they don't want anything bad to happen to them. I grant you that, but they don't necessarily believe that their money should go to providing accommodations. Leave it to the states. That's what some people say, right? Leave it to the states. It should be up to the states. Nope. That's how separate, but definitely not equal, remained in place for decades in the Deep South. That's how segregation academies came to be. My home state, Mississippi, is still full of those segregation academies, and I believe Alabama has its share as well. Leave it to the states means that state legislatures that have Republican majorities will continue to pass laws that keep certain populations at an advantage, that allow tax dollars to flow into private schools that have no accountability, zero, to you as the public. They do not have to accept all students, right? They can say no to anyone at the door. The money they receive can be used for any purpose, and no one can say a thing. Once those checks are written, there's nothing to be said. Leaving it to the states also means that students who are LGBTQ+, who are atheists, who don't want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, or who otherwise don't conform to white Christian middle class ideals will not be protected. Leaving it to the states means that teachers, counselors, and paraprofessionals, especially those who work with special needs or at-risk populations, will likely receive less funding, or in many cases simply lose their jobs because somebody thinks that their job isn't really necessary anyway. Leaving it to the states means that public schools in rural areas will be in danger of closing altogether. They just won't have the money to even pay the bills. That means that students in those areas will have to ride the bus even longer to get to school. And for some students, this may mean giving up that part-time job that's helping their family meet their basic needs. So they'll just give up and drop out. You know, our dropout rate's already pretty abysmal, and I think it's just going to get worse if federal funding and support is taken away. Leaving it to the states means that extra time on test for students with learning disabilities, wheelchair ramps for students who need them, bagged lunches during the summers for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, books in school libraries that represent all kinds of people, all of those things will be on the chopping block. Leaving it to the states is downright irresponsible, and I believe that is because, sadly, because we have states like ours. Lastly, I'd just like to encourage all of you to continue to learn. Maybe it's been a few decades since you've been in an actual classroom, but that doesn't mean we can't learn. And I know I'm probably speaking to the choir, but read books. Read good books from people of all backgrounds. Come into my store and I'll recommend some to you. Even if you've always supported progress in education and spoken out against marginalized people, keep going. Keep continuing to listen and learn. And then speak to one another about the things you've learned. It's so easy to just speak against the other side, and we need to. But don't end there. Don't just speak against something. Speak for the way forward. Many things are discouraging. I get that. But there are also many reasons for hope. I'll end with one more quote from the incomparable Bell Hooks. There are times when personal experience keeps us from reaching the mountaintop, and so we let it go because the weight of it is too heavy. And sometimes the mountaintop is difficult to reach with all our resources, factual and confessional, so we are just there, collectively grasping, feeling the limitations of knowledge, longing together, yearning for a way to reach that highest point. But even this yearning is a way to know. So keep yearning, keep coming out, keep smiling your smiles and clapping your claps for people. It means a lot. I'm so thankful to be able to talk to you today. And I just want to say, from someone who's been in the trenches, that it's not something to ignore. I really do hope that the people who understand how powerful public education can be will continue to speak out. So thank you.
Okay, our next speaker. We have a couple more speakers, and then we have someone that's playing the accordion, and we'll sing a few protest songs. I will not be leading them, but somebody else will. So our next speaker is Kim, and she is going to speak to us about immigration.
Got the train working against me there. Really working against me. My name is Kim Fasking, and I'm an immigration attorney. I live in Decatur. Before that, I was working in immigration in Birmingham, and I've spent some time down at the border too, volunteering with an organization down there helping asylum seekers who were stranded under Trump's first administration under the migrant protection protocols, or what people usually refer to as Remain in Mexico, where he was basically denying entry to asylum seekers who were coming to the United States for safety because it was too dangerous for them to live in their home countries. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm grateful to every one of you who has come out here today. What's happening in our country right now is appalling. But there are far too many of us who either don't know what's going on or are just kind of willing to ignore it, or they'll say, well, we can take care of it in 4 years. We can take care of it at the midterms. But I think that that's a mistake. I think we need to be speaking up every day, and we need to be doing it publicly. I know a lot of us like to silo ourselves in our little private chat groups where it's safe to talk about these things, but people, this country is in danger. People in this country are in danger. If you think that they're coming after immigrants' rights and it's going to stop there, it's not, because your rights are next. I personally don't want to lose our country and our freedoms and our humanity by saying nothing. So thank you again for each of you being here and being willing to raise your voices. I'm sure it would be no surprise for me to tell you that Donald Trump and his sycophants have made my job harder every single day. I could list literally hundreds of things that his administration has done since January and during his first term to make life miserable for immigrants, their families, and their lawyers like me. But here's the plain truth. Donald Trump's immigration policies harm innocent people, mothers, fathers, children, business owners, workers, people just like you and me who are trying to live just peaceful, regular lives. Republicans for years have claimed they support immigration, but that they just want people to do it the right way. But since taking office, Donald Trump has stripped away right way after right way after right way. And he continues to do so every single day. And as people still struggle to do it the right way, showing up to their ICE check-ins, showing up to their interviews, showing up to their immigration court hearings, Donald Trump is having them arrested by ICE and shipped off to places like CCOT and Alligator Alcatraz to be treated worse than we would allow for dogs. Under Donald Trump, cruelty has become policy. We have witnessed so many cruelties under both his terms in office. Children ripped from their parents' arms at the border. Some have still not been reunited. Some from Donald Trump's first term have still not been reunited with their families. Families locked in cages. Children denied blankets, toothbrushes, basic dignity. The border was closed to asylum seekers and is closed again. We heard the hateful language that they used to talk about immigrants, invaders, animals. They're eating the pets. Language designed to dehumanize people whose only crime was trying to find safety for themselves, for their children, for their families. What would you do to find safety for yourself, for your children, for your family? What would you do?
Whatever it takes. Anything.
Absolutely. Cruelty is their policy, and it is the point. If you make it traumatizing enough, people who need us will no longer seek us, and that's exactly what they want. I reject that approach, and I believe all good people do also. I believe all of you do also.
Right. Yes, we do.
Put simply, no family should be torn apart by a government. No human should be persecuted by a government because of where they came from, and no human being is illegal. No human being is illegal. Trump's policies continue to threaten the lives of immigrants every single day, and each of us must speak up in their defense if we are to save the soul of this nation. Because this land was built by immigrants, it was enriched by immigrants, and it still depends on immigrants. We must not accept the racism and injustice being implemented by this administration. We must not rest until every person, regardless of where they were born, is treated with the respect and humanity they deserve.
Right.
I know that sometimes it feels pointless to fight this here in Alabama. It feels pointless to call your senator and to call your representative, but they need to hear from every single one of us every single day to understand that they are not speaking for us when they are doing these things, when they are approving these things. Those actions are not on our behalf because we reject them.
That's right. Yes, it is.
These hateful, small-minded few who are enjoying their moment of power now will not be flattered by what is written about them in future history books. But we cannot sit back quietly and wait for that to happen. Call them. Show up at their offices. Midterms are coming and there are excellent candidates running against them. Remind them of that. We have candidates with hearts and souls and compassion. So keep showing up, keep speaking out, and never back down. La lucha sigue. Thank you. And I can't work a mic stand. Sorry, just gonna give that to you.
Thank you, Kim. I've got talking about you'll do anything for your family. I know this is a weird reference, but I always think of that old movie. Remember Dr. Zhivago, where the physician was stealing wood to keep his family warm? You know, those are the things that are happening. So anyway, our next speaker is Jeremy DeVito. He's going to talk about the military and veterans and what's going on with the big, beautiful bill in that.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Can you hear me okay? Look at all these beautiful patriots out here celebrating. No kings in America. Rage against the regime. That's what we're out here to do. I'm going to look at some of your signs. I love seeing them. Trump is an orange clown. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Love calls to impeach and remove. Alabama fights fascism. Yes, we do. Democracy dies while Trump lies. And then this big one right here, due process for all. I think we just heard about that with the immigration attorney, Kim Fasking. And that's actually how I kind of got my start on my journey to running for Congress. But we're not here to talk about that. What I will say, though, is I'm a proud Athens resident, and I've been involved in planning some of these protests earlier this year. And I just want to shout out to the guy on what's happened in Athens. If you're out here listening today and you said, see what happens when you have a protest on the Courthouse Square, we're here and we see what happens. I don't see you though, big dog. Yeah. Maybe he drove by with his truck. I don't know. But anyway, I want to take us on a journey back to January 6, 2021. When we witnessed an insurrection by far-right extremists and supported by our president, Donald Trump. And I realized then what many of us probably felt, but we are this close to becoming a dictatorship.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right.
Now, there are veterans in this country who support this regime, despite the fact that we have a president, a Nepo baby who paid his way out of Vietnam, who wouldn't know the meaning of sacrifice, disparages a POW, John McCain, equates STDs, avoiding STDs, as his personal Vietnam, and who used the sacred and hallowed ground of Arlington National Cemetery to take a freaking campaign photo op. All right, this is the president that they support. There are veterans. These are veterans who forgot their oath, or they just broke it simply because of self-gratification. You see, I took an oath to the Constitution as well, and it wasn't for a paycheck. It wasn't for 4 years. It was for life. And I cannot stand by and watch as our democracy cracks and crumbles. I am duty-bound to answer that call. And that means I know I'm not alone. Despite the rise of MAGA fascism and the oath breakers within their ranks, this rally today proves that you and I are aligned in the same fight. This is a fight for democracy. This is a fight against fascism. It's a fight against those who will scapegoat the immigrant community and terrorize them with an insatiable appetite that will only continue to grow. The rise of an American Gestapo who covers their face and kidnaps innocent people on the streets and sends them off to a concentration camp in another country. And when they're done with the immigrants, like Kim said, who's next? Who are they going to label as a threat worthy of violating constitutional law? Just know this, that the fascist machine is never satisfied. And now, as you can see, we all recognize that moment. Despite the years of gaslighting, lies, and criminality that have undermined our democracy, we are rising up to the challenge with our voices, with our actions, and we are not going to be silent. But no, this doesn't come without a cost. It doesn't come without sacrifice. And veterans know what sacrifice looks like, what it feels like. And we know that it is our duty, yours and mine and all of ours, to fight, to protect our nation from slipping further into a dictatorship. And so today and every day going forward, I ask my fellow veterans, if we who swore to defend the Constitution stay silent while democracy is under attack, who is going to stand up? I ask, what good is an oath if you can't live it when your country needs it the most? And I ask you, my fellow veterans, did we put our lives on the line, leave our families behind, suffer mental and physical anguish just to see the freedoms that we fought for tore down by extremists and billionaires? No. The freedoms that we fought for, that we swore to protect. So guys, this fight is going to be longer and tougher than any training exercise. And just like your military service, it will come with sacrifice. But it requires veterans and people with steel, people with the unrelenting drive, and the purpose that you only learn when you're in the military, facing dangerous times such as these. So here, today, strengthen your resolve, remember your oath, and once again, put our country and our people's needs ahead of your own. We don't back down. We do not give in. And we will always defeat fascism. Whether it be here in 2025 or there in 1945, victory will be ours. Our future, our democracy, and our freedom will be guaranteed. My name is Jeremy DeVito. I'm running for Congress in Alabama's 5th District.
Okay, just a couple more speakers, and then we're going to really sing and protest. I would like you, if you're going to stick around, support our local businesses. That helps Athens and our tax base. So we have a lot of things to do on our square. We have restaurants, we have stores, and even off the square. So please support the businesses in Athens. Look, you can wear just about anything. Well, don't go topless, or you probably need shoes and pants. The next speaker is Zeb. Where's Zeb? Behind. He's going to talk about veterans again and solidarity. So here's Zeb.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to read this because if I try to just improv, it's going to be a mess. So I'm going to read this. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you all for coming out and putting your bodies and minds here in this fight. It's not easy, and it's not always fun. It takes courage to be here, and I have the profoundest respect for all of you. It is healing to look at this crowd and know that we stand together to resist the tyranny and violence that is taking hold in this country and becoming bolder every day. As long as we stand together, they cannot and will not win. I am a veteran. I joined the Army and went to Afghanistan over a decade ago. Sorry, y'all, if I start shaking, just look the other way. Here, there we go.
Yeah, you're good.
It takes courage to be here. Oh, I already said that. Sorry, y'all. What I want to say is that I have... Okay. No, you're good. All right, here we go. I'm a veteran. I joined the Army, went to Afghanistan a decade ago. People thank me for my service when they learn this, not really realizing that my service involved fighting people who were never any threat to me or you. I never know what to say, so I simply respond, thank you. What I want to say is that I have service left to give. I was lied to, like my fellow service members, and told the threat was out there. In reality, the threat was here all along, stalking the halls of Congress and lurking behind the pen strokes of immoral and unscrupulous con men. And I have service left to give. The people I was told I was serving by fighting overseas were here, suffering all across America. While we stood up a war machine intent only on sowing destruction never designed to end, those people were here, dreaming an American dream that is attainable by less and less people with each passing day, and was never meant to be attainable by entire communities. Communities that cannot even be called forgotten, for they were never meant to be included to begin with. It is easy to lose heart at times as we go down this road, but we must not just shrug our shoulders. We must resist complacency and neutrality. We must be bold. We must be disruptive, not merely for the sake of disruption, but with purpose, thoughtfulness, and a clear goal in mind. And I have service left to give, and I am honored to be joined by all of you today. No matter our backgrounds or individual principles or values, we know fascism when we see it, and we refuse to look away. I want you to understand that the ridicule they throw at us for standing out here together, united, without pay, comes from a place of fear. The reason they act the way they do is because their driving emotions are anger and fear. The reason they hate us is because we surround ourselves with hope, solidarity, and love, and they understand in their bones that they will never measure up. We will win this struggle so long as we continue to fight with passion and resist with love. I'd like to leave you with this passage from Emerson, if I can. A deep man believes that the evil eye can wither, that the heart's blessing can heal, and that love can overcome all odds. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well said.
Okay, we have one last speaker. That's Melody. She's with Purple People. And let's see, she's going to talk a little bit about Project 2025. She says the Moms for Liberty, I call them the minivan Taliban, and Christian nationalism, all the things that we really, really, really need to worry about.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Most of you have probably seen me in the spaces of the library, and I think Robin, if she's still here, she may have left. I appreciate her for touching on that. I got involved in, April of 2024. I went to my first library meeting. I was called in, I was tapped in from someone from Limestone County, and she said, hey, I need a grown-up in the room, I think you'll be there. You can do that. I'm like, okay, and I did. But I also called a grown-up, and Jocelyn from Madison, for those of you that know her, and she went with me. And it was my very first experience, and it was one of those formative moments in my life. I got to see Moms for Liberty in live action. I mean, I had read about it on the internet, but when I actually seen it with my own eyes, I was horrified. There was actually 2 people in that meeting, and they're here right now. Jeremy DeVito, I had no idea who that guy was, and Mr. Ken Hines. And all I noticed, there was 3 people screaming at the room against the injustice and the ridiculousness that was going on and standing up, because it was absolutely lunacy. But there was another piece, the book that they were talking about, I was very familiar with, because in New York, 15 years ago we moved here, I did therapeutic foster care, and I had a specialization. I taught sex abuse training to foster parents, was part of my training. So I knew the book well, and I also know one of the best ways that we can protect our children always is for them to have information, to know their proper body parts, to know what consent means. And any group that is going to say that we shouldn't teach kids consent and that makes it sexual, I take an issue with. And that's very scary to me. So that's how that started. So I'm gonna go on a little, I don't do well at preparing speeches, so I'm gonna ramble a little bit, because I think it's important why we do the things that we do. And if you follow me on social media, I have started posting some of those things, because I feel like I have a unique testimony. And if you've heard me speak or read anything of me online, I very often say, I am the granddaughter and daughter of Southern Baptist pastors, preachers, whatever you want to call them. So I grew up in the church. And some of the best advocates I have met in this journey, the most impassioned, have been former evangelical, I can't even talk, sorry, children, because they know, they've seen it, and they know how far that they'll take it, and it's scary to them.
Amen.
Amen, yes. So I see a lot of nods, and it's very hard when you, I think Robin touched on it, those conflicting messages, you're taught one thing, and then they're doing another thing. And I was one of those kids that's always, I got a question, that doesn't match up. And that always like weighed on me. So speaking of that, I want to read something real quick since everybody's doing quotes. It's actually pretty long, but it's my favorite. It was very formative to me as well when I was 19 years old. I had my first child at 21. But I loved it so much because it was such a different philosophy. Your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. For though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are set forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends with his might that his arrow may go swift and far. Let your bending of the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that's steady. Have any of you heard that before? No? You've heard it, okay. That was very formative to me. That's how I parented my children. I let them explore any religion things they wanted. I have my own personal beliefs, but I felt very strongly. I remember being, I think it was 19, I called, and it touched me so much I read it to my mother. That probably didn't go well when, you can imagine how that went. But it was one of those things. So I was always questioning things. And then with the Moms for Liberty, this past Monday, I actually went to an event that was at a church in Madison. Does anybody remember the name of it? Zeb, do you remember the name of the church? I think it's the Movement Church. I just don't want to quote the wrong church. It was the Movement Church. And I went in there. It was a Moms for Liberty event. They were hosting, I think his name is Justin, that's running for Tupperville's seat. And Emily Jones is the Moms for Liberty leader. And she stood on stage and said the reason why she goes to that church is because they preach politics from the pulpit. You can go on their Facebook, click on their live link, you can actually listen to it for yourself. So that's one of the reasons why I feel like it's so important that Project 2025 and that we address Moms for Liberty. Because the damage, they are uplifting those messages. Has anybody, were you raised in Baptist church? Anyone here? I heard it, there was some, yeah. Where I'm getting all the head nods, okay, I see. So all of the messages from the men were, women can't preach, rely on your own, do not rely on your own understanding. Sit right, look pretty, and don't step out of line. And the women, there would be mixed. There would be, hey, let's just stay away from this man. Watch what you wear. But trust your gut. They would say things like that. But then when it came down to it, there was always the message of sit down, look pretty, and don't step out of line. So one of the pieces that I've never said out loud of why I do what I do is that piece of I always say, because my grandfather was a Democrat through and through. He was a coal miner. I was born in West Virginia. My stepfather, they don't love Trump. They go by we don't love him, but we vote for the platform, that type. So when Donald Trump came into power, I very much openly always say, I voted for John McCain. I was a former military spouse, so I've never voted for Donald Trump, and I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
Not even once, my gut. And I had such a strong, desire to speak out, and I did since the very beginning. But the piece that I've never spoken about and that I'm going to say today out loud in front of all of you people, my grandfather was a Southern Baptist pedophile. He did not abuse me or my aunt. However, he abused my mama and my aunts. And I watched all my life to be told to watch out for that man, but then I see him get up in front of a congregation. And I see the women who raised me to be strong, I have to say. I mean, they're the reason why I'm here. I had a lot of therapy, a little bit of antidepressants, whatever. I'll be honest here today. But that's why I do what I do. I have never spoken that out loud. There's about, I don't know, I think there's probably one. Has anybody known that today besides Miss Barbara? No one knew that. I didn't tell it because it wasn't my story to tell. And I worried about my aunts. But I've also watched as what's happened in this country. And this week I've had a lot of very formative, this has been on my heart since the Purple People got its name. And I have deviated from my gut because it's not a fun topic. Probably not a fun topic to end on, so I'm sorry. We participated, Zeb and I, with Purple People, with Susan of Indivisible. Is Jeffrey still here? 50-50, want him? I think he's there. Woo! Okay, he did a great job. They had an amazing protest. What day was that? On Wednesday. We went to the Von Braun. There was about 10 of us, and Dale Strong was in there. We were not protesting the event. All of the signs were very clear. We were protesting Dale Strong and noting that he voted to keep the Epstein files sealed. Good. And so it was very specific. And Susan and Jeffrey did a beautiful job on the way out of just no one was ugly, just saying, hey, this is what happened. Just nod your head and say that you're not for that. Because we understood they were there for different things. How many people took a voice? One, there was a police officer. We got 3 fist bumps and 1 thumbs up. We were laughed at, ridiculed. It was just the overall tone, wasn't it? It was very disheartening, extremely disheartening, to see something so simple as a head nod, that people couldn't even have that much courage to do that. Gonna have to take a second.
It's okay.
Well, I cried all night, so I'm not gonna cry now. I told you that I called my mama and read her that when I was 18. So with the therapy, that's where I was going with the therapy. I finally got to a point this year, after the election, I snapped. This was the one, I gave so much grace the first time. The second time, no. After January 6th, absolutely not. But in November, I snapped. My whole people have been cut out. I have no room for it, none. But I have been able to come to a place of forgiving my mother. Even though it didn't happen to me, I was still exposed to it. My daughter was in those spaces, and I was not okay with it. And I was always the one speaking out and not understanding. So watching our whole country, because I thought there was better people out there. Like, I thought, oh, this was just like this is a little bit of a problem. No, we have a really big problem. And we were out there saying, red or blue, it does not matter who. It does not matter who. We have to protect children. And there's another incident that happened yesterday that I won't go into, but it brought that to the forefront. And when I cried all night, I slept an hour and a half, it occurred to me, because I was thinking about those messages from all of those men in those churches and all of the women of don't step out of line. And that's been my whole goal, is to always, my daughter, step out of line. I let her call me out. She'll say, Mama, that's being when she was little, she'd call it a hypocrite. You're being a hypocrite. And so I called my mama this morning after crying, and it hit me because they were strong women. They were so strong. Churches are, the way we have households and things, it's labor of women that's unpaid labor. They run those churches. They're just not allowed to stand up in front of the pulpit. And I called my mama this morning, and it felt it hit me when I was thinking about how strong they were. And I called her. I didn't ask for permission, but I said, and I know that this was what I was supposed to speak on today, because when I tried to call her, she could hear I was crying, and I never call her crying because I'm not going to do that to her. The phone hung up 5 times. I didn't get to, I finally did, but there was that, and then when I went to go get my car, it wouldn't start either. It's like, okay, I'm going on the right route. I need to do this today. And I did. I called her and I said, Mama, I just need to know that you're still going to love me when I do this. I'm not asking your permission. I can no longer carry this inside my body. And back to that therapeutic foster care, that's why I went into that. And I really believe that we need to protect children pedophilia should be the line in the sand. Every time we think it should be the line in the sand, it's not the line in the sand. But let me tell you, and I'm not out here today, and I don't do what I do for anybody other than my 13-year-old daughter. And I'm going to tell her every single day of her life, step out of line. So I'm sorry for the depressing little thing, but I just want to tell everybody, continue to step out of line. Just those little things. It doesn't matter what you do. Whether it's a t-shirt, these ladies are out here doing bridges all the time. There's so many things that people can do, but they can just be those little small things. But women that are in these spaces, and that's what killed me. Those men walking around laughing, that didn't hurt me. But watching those women giggle and just, So, step out of line, guys. Sorry for the rant.
Okay, that's the end of our speakers. Just a couple reminders. Shop Athens if you have time today. Also, remember, all we have is our voices. So you have to use them. If you cannot speak up or be out here with your body, please download 5 calls, write letters, send emails. This is very, very, very serious, you guys. I called the other day and talked to somebody in Britt's office, and my complaint was, hell, I can't remember, it was something. But I was informed that I need to get online and see the list of how that big, ugly bill is going to benefit me. And I don't know how in the hell that thing is going to benefit me. So anyway, I just say we've got a long fight ahead, and you better be prepared. If you put your head in the sand, that's just hurting the rest of us. What is it? Oh, tonight. At 5 to 7?
Yeah.
If this isn't enough for you, there is another protest down in Huntsville at the Duck Pond, 5 o'clock to 7. So if you want to head to Huntsville, 5 to 7.
my sister.
I saw her. I think we're friends online.
I think
You share. I don't.
yes, thank you very much.
Oh, I was.
Any support and help would certainly be appreciated as long as you vote.
Okay, I already told him I vote for him.
Thank you so much. Please spread the word. Help us spread the word.
Okay.
Reading bios. It's okay. We also need people we need people who didn't just study business majors to go into because like whose name? Eddie and Jeff.
I'm Barbara.
Barbara, it's nice to meet you.
Matthew.
No, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Much better. I see you made it a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
Really good.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad. It's
Yes,
nice to have you here.
yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Sir. Oh, shit. Damn.